Before we get started, though, something we got to tell you about. There is a new streaming service out there. It's not well, it's been around for a little while, but it is a darn good one. It's called Film Movement Plus, and it opens up a world of award-winning entertainment, including some of the best films from all across the globe. There's hundreds of titles really waiting for you to dig in and discover. And I mean, it's a wide array of sort of fantastic film from basically every corner of the planet. I mean, and this month they've added things like a fantastic humanistic drama called "Song Without a Name" from writer director Melina Leone. And also, if you're a music fan, there are a bunch of fantastic docs from filmmaker Robert Moog, who did films like Sun Ra, A Joyful Noise, or the Gil Scott Heron documentary Black Wax. There's a lot of really interesting stuff to dive into on the service from all across the globe, and I cannot recommend it enough. And the app is fully available on places like Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire, as well as online and on your phone if you need to. It's a scant $5.99 a month, which is a great deal. I mean, none of us are going for Starbucks anymore, so that's basically the price of a coffee. But also, as a listener of this podcast, because we love you so much, Film Movement Plus is going to give you not only a 30-day free trial if you sign up, but they'll give you the next 3 months after that at 50% off when you use the promo code SEATS. So I just, it is basically a steal. So please go sign up for Film Movement Plus today. It is a great one. And you can find all that information and more over at filmmovementplus.com. And don't forget to sign up with the promo code SEATS. Uh, Enjoy the show.
Ladies and gentlemen, please take your seats.
It's time to rock out, but we're not going to do it with our cocks out because that would be inappropriate and pretty gross. And if you're within the sound of my voice, that must mean you are in the seats with once more. As always, my name is Dave Voigt, and I'm the host of this podcast, where we sit down with a wide-ranging variety of industry professionals and pick their brain about current projects, state of the industry, how they got started, and so very much more in a light and conversational fashion. And if you like how we do things over here, and I assume that you do because we're well, you're listening to us right now. You can basically subscribe to the podcast. You can find us over at Apple, Spotify, Google, Amazon, basically wherever you get your podcasts. Plus, you can find every single one of our episodes archived over at our YouTube channel. Also, we'd love it if you'd follow us on social media. You can do that on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at either In the Seats or at It's Podcast One for all sorts of updates. And finally, and I dare say most importantly, please pay us a visit over at In the Seats, intheseats.ca for all the latest and greatest movie reviews, news from festivals, video on demand, theatrical, anything that floats our boat, because we love talking about movies and we love it when you read about it. So please come pay us a visit. On this episode, we are kicking off our Hot Docs 2021 coverage. For those of you who are not in the know, there is the pretty large international film festival that we have going on here in Toronto. It is called it is the Hot Docs Canadian International Film Festival. That felt anticlimactic, but it's a great festival, and it shows a wide-ranging variety of documentary film that comes from not just homegrown in our backyard, but all across the world. And there is a wide swath of really sort of fantastic filmmaking that's out there. And if you want to go check it out, it does start this Thursday. But yeah, it's online on April 29th, the Canadian Documentary Film Festival. We got a good one. We're starting off our coverage right. We're starting off with a little bit of rock and roll. We're talking about the film Fanny, Right to Rock, which is playing in the Persister program, which is about women speaking up and being heard. And Fanny is the story of two Filipina-American sisters in sunny Sacramento who got to play together to play music. And little did they know, they had this garage rock band which would evolve into Fanny, which was a rather foundational and really sort of groundbreaking group for women in rock and roll, and they have fans from a variety of generations, including David Bowie himself, and they are one of the major influences on acts like the Go-Go's, the Mangles, and the Runaways, and they are really sort of a seminal piece of rock and roll history that not a lot of people know about, which is which is why I watched the film, and I learned so much, and I fell in love with these women, and I fell in love with the music, and we got the unique and distinct pleasure to sit down with writer, director, producer Bobbi Jo Hart about the making of the film and sort of how she found these ladies and rock and roll in general and documentary filmmaking and so very much more. It's a bit of a longer one than we usually do, but it's a absolutely fantastic talk that we had with Bobbi Jo, and I think it's a great kickoff to the Hot Docs coverage. Like I said, the festival does start online because we don't quite have theaters yet, so everything is online, Canada-wide, from April 29th on. So go to Hot Docs boxoffice.hotdocs.ca and find out more, and or just Google Hot Docs and go to their website and you can learn more too. And but most of all, enjoy our talk with Bobbi Jo, because I certainly know I did. I got to admit, I'm a little ashamed to know that Fanny didn't even exist, but now I'm a fan. Walk me through sort of the inspiration for why you needed to tell this story.
Well, I mean, it's crazy, but I really realized recently that it's been 25 years since I made my first film. And I'm like, holy cow, like, oh my God, like time just goes like that, you know? And then I start looking back, it's like, okay, because somebody asked me once, like, is there a through line to the films that you do, and et cetera, et cetera. And I realized there is. It's like the through line, which includes Fanny, and like why, like all my ideas seem to serendipitously come to me in some, whether it's an article I read or I talk to someone or I, you know, and the through line is untold stories. And I admit it, you know, all of my films except my last film on Les Ballets Trocadero de Monte Carlo, the all-male drag ballet company, Rebels on Point was the film. Except for that film, all the film are about women or girls or just untold stories, and they're all about underdogs. You know, I love the underdog. You know, so I love when an underdog can rise. You know, so I was looking for my daughter. Like you can see it back there. You see that Taylor guitar back there?
Yeah.
Okay, that's my daughter's. And, you know, around 4 years ago, I was on the Taylor Guitar website because her guitar teacher said, you know, they're a good price. They're, you know, I can get you a good deal at the Steve's Music, and they're reliable. And I think it's a good first kind of, you know, step up from your, you know, the $200 guitar that I, you know, found just to see if she liked guitar.
Right.
So several years later, she still loves it. But I'm on the Taylor Guitar website, and on one of the menu choices said stories. So I'm like, ooh, stories. So I click on it and, you know, scan down, and then up comes this photo of June Millington. It's like, you know, flaming gray hair with this electric guitar, and she's like, you know, she's in her. It was a relatively recent photo, like in her 60s, you know, gray flaming hair, just like you know. I was just like, whoa. So I start reading, and then the more I read, the more I got equally excited and equally pissed off. And that kind of sums up how I find my films, being equally thrilled and equally pissed off. So and the you know, the thrilled part is like, wow, I discovered this new rock band, because I love rock and roll. I grew up in the 80s, and it's just like all, you know, rock and roll. And my parents, you know, in the 60s were playing all the best rock and roll on our LP, and 60s and 70s. But why weren't they playing Fanny? You know, like in the early 70s, I was born in 66, I'm 55. So, you know, the early 70s, I was like 6, 7, but they were already playing, you know, all the, you know, they were hippies. They were like so into rock and roll, and we went to these van clubs, and like they were on the front lines of like what was going on in music. But never, you know, we heard David Bowie, you know, David Bowie loves Fanny, but we never heard Fanny. So I was just like, what the hell happened? How are they not in our collective consciousness? And so then, so that's how it started, really, is just reading that story and then reading, as I said, about David Bowie, being quoted in Rolling Stone magazine, and just the layers and the fact they put out 5 albums in 5 years, I mean, aside from the covers, the cover they do on pretty much, I think each album had a cover song, which they rocked and everybody says they rocked. But they also wrote, like the rest of all their own music. They wrote about the war. They wrote about the birth control pill. They wrote about, conversations with a cop, about like a cop kind of looking at you suspiciously walking at night, when you're walking your dog, and how that kind of, it was very poetic, but also very telling about our society. So there's layers to this band in terms of their storytelling, their musicianship. So they were an all-girl band. They were self-founded. They were not put together like, okay, we're going to pick you by a male producer. And all creds to any bands that were done that way. But Fanny, like, they literally started in their garage. 2 sisters, like, plink, plink, plinking, and then met a couple other gals, plink, plink, plink. And so I just, I was really pissed off, and I was looking for a new, I had my mind open to a new film idea, and it just grabbed me. It just grabbed me by my heart, my gut, just grabbed me. It's just like, just grabbed me and didn't let go.
That's going to be an interesting headspace to be in for a documentary filmmaker, to be excited to discover a story, but also be pissed off to be like, wait a minute, no one else has done this? Yeah,
it is. And I think, for the underrepresented in our society, I think that's just another day in the life of our world. Women are still underrepresented, whether it's in film or whether it's in literature. And it's just, there's a catch up going on, to try, like, history is literally written by the victors, and rock and roll, especially, pick a music genre that you're going to, let's dabble in rock and roll in the 60s. It's like, not like the hardest genre, I think, one of the hardest for women to get into and to get creds for. But that's the thing too about Fanny, is they had the creds, like they were in our band home jamming with, Little Feat and Bob Dylan's The Band, Joe Cocker and Bonnie Raitt, like Bonnie says in the film, and it says a lot. They were the first band of women to get credibility within the musician community. And they had that, including David Bowie, like they had those creds. It's like, yeah. It was just, I think they were, as Alice says, we're like, Fanny was 10 years too early, or they were just, didn't quite know what to do with them. So at the end of the day, I was pissed off, but that's the catalyst for all the films that I do, is just, how making a film is allowing you to create something that can be a historical document, that can be the little wind from the wings of a butterfly that can help affect, if it can help affect some small change or big change, hey, why not? For Fanny and for women in music, like rock on. I think it's great, and I'm honored to do it.
Were they receptive to the idea of you following them around with a camera?
Yes, actually they were. When I first contacted, I think I first wrote an email to, Alice DeBurr, the drummer, has the Fanny Rocks website that she manages with some help, Byron, etc. And I wrote her, and it took a bit for her to get back to me, but I was just writing, putting out the feelers everywhere, like, I'm sure like you do if you're trying to do an interview or something. Course, like, where are the combinations and permutations how I can reach these people? And so Alice did write me back, and she was a little skeptical, but, but I think by then I've already reached June at the Institute for the Musical Arts, and she was open to it, but I was still finishing this other film and releasing it. So it was kind of like, on my spare time, I was kind of nurturing that idea, like watering it, etc. But for me, when I talked to them, there wasn't something happening per se at the moment. And for me, all of my films are really centered in cinema verite. I I've often just filmed on my own with my camera, and thank God for the color correction and the sound engineers that I work with that were able to fix that shit that I did wrong. Because I don't pretend like the finished product is, oh, I was just so great on location. I do everything perfectly. No, I suck at technically with the camera. But I have great eye for composition, for natural lighting, for hearing what, if there's noise going on, to know that I need to wait. My directional mic is my friend, and yes, wireless, but in the Fanny film, I was so blessed to have some fabulous cinematographers that I work with, because it needed it, and they deserved it. So it was a mix of me. There was 2 cameras, myself, and most of the time Claire Sanford, Montreal DOP, who was amazing. He was there from the first day and did so much of the filming. Also Naomi Tur and Sam Trudell, and Antoine did he did like the cool effects, in studio with the girl that's rocking out and stuff. Like, so we did some stylized stuff with him, and that was just great. But it was great to work with these people. And then otherwise it was mixed in with some of my verite. But I'm happy to say we didn't have to use a lot of it, because, we had so much, for both in the same place. It wasn't like we necessarily needed it. So my color correction and sound mix people, Danielle and digital cut, they didn't have as much work to do on those fronts, since I had such great, frontline DOPs to work with.
It feels like research on something like this is probably one of the more fun parts of the job. And I'm kind of curious, sort of, as you're getting everything together, like, I'm kind of curious, is there anything about the band you discovered that maybe you didn't expect to find out?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, from the get-go, like I had no idea that David Bowie was such a big fan. It just says volumes. He's a legend. He's a legend when he's alive, and he'd be a legend for centuries, music. So I literally needed to find that Rolling Stone magazine. I bought it from somebody in Europe on eBay. I needed to hold it in my hand. I needed to feel and look at, not just read the little quotes that people did online, but I really wanted to witness it.
Right.
So I found that December 99 Rolling Stone magazine, and it came in the mail. I was so excited. It's very fragile. And I'm just like looking through it, and like this page opens, and then there's this sketch of David Bowie. And then it's literally, everybody got their time capsule on that magazine, and then they highlight it, what do they call it in print? Like a pull quote, I guess they call it. Yeah. But it was the same idea, but they called it like time capsule, and tons of people were interviewed in that, because it was like the time capsule for the century, their last issue of the century. So he literally, he just went on, he just chose Fanny, one of the most important bands, buried without a trace. They played like motherfuckers, blah, 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 blah. And then the last line, it just like grabbed me. It was just like, revivify Fanny, and I feel my work will be done. And so I literally like tried to reach him, because he was still alive, but it was the last year of his life. Wow. And, you can imagine he was on that last project, and I'm sure his gatekeepers were, keeping and nobody knew that he was dying, nor did I. Like, everybody found out really late, wasn't it? Like that.
Yeah, it's true.
Because he was really had all of this like real protection just to be able to finish this project, and for people not to know. So I didn't know until really close, or maybe after he died. And then it was like, oh, now I see why nobody's responding. Because I'm sure he would have, I'm sure if he was in good health, I'm sure he would have, loved to have participated and been on camera for it. So my research after discovering that included a lot of wasted hours. Oh my God, so many wasted hours trying to find some kind of video clip or audio interview of David Bowie saying it. He was quoted there, but I wanted him to say it. So the next best thing I could do was, who were the people closest to him that might have heard him talking about Fanny? So that's Earl Slick, his lead guitarist, who's in the film, and Gail Ann Dorsey, bassist, who, David Bowie introduced her to Fanny, like literally. And so that was a really nice find, because she played with him for years, as did Earl. And to meet someone that, I didn't know about him, and David Bowie turned me on to him, and like, he was right. They're like amazing. So we're channeling David through Earl and Gail in the film.
That's
and
awesome.
Yeah, so that research led me to them to do the best I could to get as close to what would be honest and true from him as possible on the band, aside from that quote. But yeah, and then just the research of just finding people, that were part of it. I mean, it just was a lot of work, but I love research. So just every little crumb that little thing that you would come across was a good day. It was a great day, just piling up these little elements of people, or finding out, just reading the liner notes of different albums, and like, oh, Todd Rundgren produced that. Okay, I'm gonna try to find Todd. And it was so sad because it was like 2 weeks away from the interview with Jeff Emmerich, the Beatles engineer.
Oh, wow.
And he died 2 weeks before the interview. And sorry, Jeff.
Oh, but
So what do you do?
There's such enthusiasm in watching the film, and especially in everyone that you talk to. I mean, because with these rock docs, I mean, we'll see people talking, but it'll be more, analytical. It'll be talking head type thing. But everyone you got to talk to seemed very enthusiastic and very sort of eager to talk about Fanny. And I mean, that really does come through in the film.
Well, and that wasn't because I had to sneak in, some one little clip, and the rest was all dissing them. Luckily, that really was what they were like in the interview. And yeah, I mean, it was incredible. And there were other people that are on the cutting room floor, just because you can only put so much in an hour and a half, and you have to have a narrative and a trajectory that makes sense. Like, I interviewed Alana Miles and a bandmate from Chicago. There are other people, Christine Ullman. There are just so many. You just can't. I was trying to make it a 3-hour film. I really was. And, just like, no, nobody will notice. It's just, yes, and then there was all these young people I interviewed too. I went to Osheaga and, the Montebello Rock Fest, and these young artists and the Horny Bitches, the only women rock band that was at Montebello Rock Fest, and all women rock band. And there was a whole great scene there, that Osheaga with the Beaches and with Alice Merton. But there was a whole scene around that. But then it was just like, everyone that watched it was just like, that's another film. Like, go make that. But that's a whole other film. So then we just had to pare it down to Annie Stoic with, who's under Joan Jett's label. The, oh God, what's the name of their band? I'm blanking
Too.
No, it's on my computer. Yes, Jackknife Stiletto. I have a sticker on my computer. So yeah, Jackknife Stiletto. So I wanted to bring in the younger point of view, and so I fought really hard to at least get that in, because people were saying to take that out, and I just thought, no, we need to have at least we need to bring that in and contextualize with girls that are fighting today, because literally, how many rock bands of all women can you name today? It's
Very
like,
few.
yeah, they laid some groundwork, but okay, we got the Runaways and we got the Go-Go's who were more on the pop side. So they, the hits came easier, I think, because they tapped into that, that main vein, so to speak, and the Runaways did great too, and the Bangles, and et cetera, et cetera. And Haim is one of those, all girl bands. It's floating between pop, but they've got a lot of edge to them too. I mean, one band that I love that I wanted in the film, like I actually introduced them to Brie in LA. They were there recording. Have you heard of The Warning?
Yeah, I have.
Yeah, the three Mexican sisters.
Oh, they're great.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm hoping, because there's already a couple Mexican film festivals that I've been to before in Mexico. And so my dream is, like, I would love to find, when the film goes to different places, if Fanny can't be there, then my dream of dreams would be to find these, under the radar or not so under the radar for those of us that love rock and roll, in different countries that the films do, like bands that maybe will do a cover of a Fanny song,
because they're out there.
At the festival. Yeah, because they're out there. And then at the same time, you're bringing attention to Fanny, but you're also reminding the public, like, hey, check these other bands out that are coming up that are like the Fannies of today, like trying to break in, you know? So I don't know where we were starting, but that's where I took us. Sorry about that,
No,
Dave.
no, no. No, it's a good thing that you took us there, because it leads into something else. Because I mean, not to give away too many spoilers, but there is a bit
Yeah,
of an emotional bump in the road as they're getting back together and the new album is going on. But I'm
yeah.
kind of curious, how important was it, not just for you, but for them to be able to have that in the film? Because I really felt sort of the emotion around that encapsulated what Fanny was about, which so much more than just the music. It was about sort of the family that was Fanny, or that is Fanny.
Oh, you give me goosebumps with saying that, because it's, you know, we haven't screened it yet. So to get, you know, to have audience reactions starting with you and is so fun. It just gets me really excited. Yeah, because that was a tough one, you know, again, without giving a spoiler, they hit a big bump in the road, you know, around the releasing of the new rock album, which is amazing and got really good critical reviews. And that bump, yeah, which could have basically thrown other people off the road, you know, like, okay, you know, off in the ditch and that's it, you know. It just showed how much resilience and determination these women have, and that connection as family, as friends, you know. I mean, family, they are like a big family, all of them, even though, you know, they may be different incarnations of the band and what, you know, what's this or that. And, but they are family. They all are part of this family of Fanny, you know, and families fight and
Yeah.
families don't agree. And families have times they don't talk to each other because they're pissed off at each other because of XYZ. But at the end of the day, they're family. And so to me, my job was to find that main artery
For sure.
of Fanny and just keep, you know, just grabbing the hands and just like, hey, let's just remember there's this main artery that, you know, that you're all connected by, and let's you know, let's follow that together. And it wasn't hard because they when they connected back to that special place of what this is all meant to them, aside from all the hardship and the, you know, the brick walls that they ran into over and over and over, you know, like you say, the bump that they experienced releasing the new album, you know, it's like June says in the film, you know, rocking is just a metaphor. You know, when you fall down, you pick yourself back up again. And that's what they did back then. And it's what they continue to do. They pick themselves back up and it's like, okay, there's a door closed. Okay, where's the window? You know, like let's, you know, they're so incredibly resilient. And I just I'm amazed by these women. They're mentors to me and to, so, you know, to future generations. And honestly, like that's where the film title came from. Like I like each film I do, I kind of create this vision board where I collect things that inspire me, that to me can, you know, visually or through words that inspire to me what the film feels like or sounds like or could look like to, you know, to the public. And then I take this vision board and then I sketch really badly, you know, something based on that I work with my graphic artist and say, can you create something that looks like that, but much better?
Yeah.
Because I'm like a stick figure girl. So, but I'll take the drawings and things or cut them out and just paste a collage or just, you know. And so John Godfrey, who I work with, who's a graphic designer on the poster, who did a great job. He really got it, what I was trying to go. Like I'd found a picture of a little girl with a headband on. It was like the Statue of Liberty, like a headband you could buy at the tourist shop. And she was standing in front of the Statue of Liberty. And I won't say what she was a diverse young lady, you know,
Okay.
she was from a diverse population and this huge smile on her face. And it's, you know, I was born and raised in the States. I'm a dual citizen. So it you know, it really brought tears to my eyes just seeing this little girl. And the Statue of Liberty to me growing up, and I think still represents, it's like, give me your cold and huddled masses, you know, that you're all welcome. You are all welcome here. And so seeing that little girl being so proud to wear that crown of the Statue of Liberty and standing there, I'm like, the Statue of Liberty represents us all, and in this case with Fanny, it represents, all women, because that's who I'm following in this film.
Mm.
And so I did some research on the Statue of Liberty, and the color you see in the poster is actually the original color. It was this kind of brassy-ish color as opposed to green. Like
Right.
over time, the chemicals, it turned into a greener color. And then I thought, well, what if we take her as a metaphor for what Fanny represents, of freedom, of acceptance, of, any identity welcome, any gender welcome, and give her some attitude, because the Statue of Liberty, there's an element of the Mona Lisa,
Right.
docile, how we'd like women to be, and especially Asian American women, quiet, we don't get loud, And so Fanny just kicks that in the teeth, man. Like they're not only, they didn't not only found their voices and use their voices. They said, we're gonna say this really, really loud, and if you have a problem with that, like, fuck off. It's just like we have something to say, and it wasn't necessarily against anyone. It was for them. It was like, and that's how anyone who wants to express their voice, and that's the beauty of rock and roll, is like, say it loud and proud, and, and get people excited and charged, with what you're saying and how you're saying it, and that energy flowing through you. That's the beauty and joy, and that's where rock and roll takes us to another level. And Fanny was right in there with that back in the day. And as you see people that post on YouTube and fans from all over the world, it's like, yeah, I was at the concert in London, or I was at this concert here, and oh my God, they rocked, and they rocked. And, and so so in terms of like going back to just the poster, I realized that I wanted to change the face too, that she was like rocking out. Like it could be someone in a band, or it's somebody just that got somebody, like I took my daughter to see Sheryl Crow in Montreal, and she actually gave my daughter her guitar pick that said Sheryl Crow on it,
Oh, wow.
And so my daughter saved it. Yeah, pretty awesome moment, because like she was the only like 12-year-old kid in the audience, and in Montreal it was this little tiny venue, so it was easy to be close to the stage. So we were all up and dancing, and she literally walked over and handed it to her. And so to me, like that little guitar pick she's holding in the poster, with a rock sign, it's like, it could be a band member. It could be a girl in the audience. It's rocking out to Fanny that maybe got this guitar pick thrown at them, that they're just rocking out in there. It's the whole collective rock experience. But I wanted her to be yelling loud, like rocking out, And I have had, there's a particular man who I really respect in the film industry, who will go nameless, but who said, I really don't like that poster. Her mouth looks it doesn't look really nice. It doesn't look really pretty. It doesn't, she should just be smiling or something. And I sent it to, one of my exec producers, Catherine Bainbridge, who directed the film Rumble.
Right.
Yeah. So Catherine's an EP on the film because she basically would come over and we'd sleep, we'd stay up all night and brainstorm ideas. And, that's why there's several EPs that have, they have different places in that, village that help the film happen. So when I sent Catherine Bainbridge this little comment from the guy that we both know, and she just said, she just wrote back in one line on the text, and nothing personal, Dave, because I love men. And, she said, fuck the male gaze. That's all she wrote, and that's really what it is like, and I have a 16-year-old daughter, it's like, and we're so often defining how we look, how we act, how we talk by that male gaze, whether it's our father, whether it's our boyfriend, whether it's the collective men in society, or even comments I see after we posted the film trailer. Rolling Stone, they were so awesome to, offer the exclusive release of the film trailer, a couple of weeks ago. And that was like amazing. But like they linked it to the, Fanny, the Right to Rock YouTube page, which we started for the film. And then there's so many amazing comments. They rock. And then once in a while, you'll just see this, hater, that says something like just, and I'm not even gonna repeat what it is because it doesn't deserve airtime, in my opinion. It's
Well,
just
YouTube is
like,
a cesspool, but yeah.
yeah, it's just like there's, it's just, and I'm a sensitive person, so it's, I just want to get out there and just like, hey, blah, 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 but I'm like, I'm not going there, or I'll write something just,
So you just got to walk away. Yeah.
walk away, or I'll just go, oh, well, maybe, click on here and maybe this, maybe you'll like watch this, or I'll just try to kind of, instead of hitting it head to head, just to try to engage in the conversation in a way that leads somewhere positive.
No,
That's
I mean that's the important thing at the end of the day, and that's sort of
yeah,
the
exactly.
idea
It does so much
behind
positive.
Fanny in the first place.
Yeah.
And I
So
mean,
so
just
you're
in talking to you, like I
yeah.
love how enthusiastic you are about the film, and obviously, as you said at the beginning, like you're always attracted to the underdog story. But I'm kind of curious, as a filmmaker, as a documentarian, at some point you have to let it go, and I'm kind of curious: is this like, can you let this one go? Is this going to be one you can let go?
Oh my God, yeah. I I've been to some master classes with filmmakers that, give advice on, be ruthless in the cutting room. And that's why certain people just go in their bubble, they make the film and then they release it. But I do believe in the village. I send out, the rough assembly and the rough cut to many different people, whether it's, filmmakers I trust, or my sisters, that have no idea what I've been doing, different kinds of people that could be this potential kind of diverse audience you would have, in the cinema, and ask them, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, etc. So I use them as my, kind of collective focus group as I'm going along, which helps drive me and help me, you know, shovel out the tears from the cutting room floor of people that I adore and that gave their time, to the film, and to those that are not even interviewed in the film, because I realized it was just too many degrees of separation away from the story that was unfolding, and realizing I just can't waste their time, because I know that's going to be too far off the center of the branch of the tree. So letting it go is really hard. A good thing that happened, though, I have to admit, I mean, COVID is not a good thing, but we were planning to release the film last year.
Right.
And when it went all virtual, Hot Docs, God bless them, said, we can't guarantee 100%, but we really would work hard to try to program it next year, but we understand if you're going to wait, because I wanted to wait. My priority, because if this band has waited 50 effing years to get recognized to me in a proper way, which to me ultimately is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
yeah,
hopefully the Go-Go's will get in this year. Whether Fanny was the shoulders they're standing on or not, like, hey, like women power, like if they're on the front lines. I know Tina Turner, I'm watching the fan votes right now, Tina I think's number one, or maybe she's up there, and then I think the Go-Go's are in position 3. I think that only gives them one vote finally in the whole Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, alchemy of voting. But regardless of that, if they could be the Go-Go's could be the first band of all women that gets in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I think that's just fabulous. And my hope is that they get in, and my hope would be that Fanny follows them next year, but aside from that recognition, the other recognition that I feel they deserve is, in the music, being played more on the radio, being, that when someone's saying, oh, here, we're going to go back to some rock and roll back in the day, Joe Elliott, he's freaking phenomenal that way. He's got a radio show in the UK, and he often has Fanny on his list. He is so in love with that band. And I don't know, did you go to the end of the trailers and see the little surprise? I like to put surprises at the end of the trailer. I mean, not the trailer, the credits.
I did.
Did you see that?
I did.
That was literally like a little YouTube, not a YouTube, I think his wife or somebody must have filmed that. I just said, hey, can you send me a photo or something of you with that flexi disc? I'd really like to see it. I can't believe you've saved that freaking thing since you were 12. And And so I think, but it was just so adorable what he did. I just said, okay, I want to, I've done this in other films where I do this little wink at the end of the credits, if you're patient enough as a credit, you'll get a lollipop, So that, Joe was just like so amazing that it was obvious that was going to make it in the film. The other parts, especially his description of Blind Alley, because I loved how he broke down the song. He didn't just say, oh, that was a nice song, they really rocked out. I mean, he broke it down, and so I was in the editing room with my editor, and I was like, okay, we have to take the song, like he's referring to this song, he's breaking it down in a way, he's in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Like Joe literally made time the day before he was inducted in New York to do this interview for the film. Wow. Like his team was all around him, and they were just like, I had to rent a room at the same hotel. I had set it up, and I'm just like waiting there and crossing fingers. And I'm sure I made, it a nightmare for his, fabulous manager, but they all went along and were so great. And, for everyone who took time, including Bonnie Raitt, et cetera. But, coming full circle to releasing the film and letting it go, because I withdrew and I wanted to wait for a live, opportunities to have the film live, even if it was at drive-ins. So somehow Fanny could be there, so they could somehow be there, even if it wasn't the world premiere, but that quickly soon after there was going to be some possibilities of them being there in person, because they haven't seen the final film. Really? I begged them. They saw the rough cut. But when it came to the final film, I asked them, I said, I'd really like to show it to you in person on a big screen, not to watch it, at home in a computer. I want you to be there surrounded by people. So they have been such amazing people to allow, to wait for that. I mean, they already have the heart of the film that they watched in the rough cut, but there's so many great things that happen, which we've been allowed to do. And make the film better. Like I had an opportunity, because last year I was really rushing to finish. And if we'd have been at Hot Docs, it would have been a different film than it's going to be at Hot Docs this year. One thing that was just a basic thing that just takes a film to another level is the animation. Like Cara Blake, who did all these cool animated effects and things, and the title with the photos, etc. Like, instead of it just a slow zoom in, of different photos. I was like, that was killing me last year when we were rushing to release it. I'm like, we need to do that. We don't have time, So I actually feel better. I feel much more resolved inside, and happier inside, because I did get that little extra time because we postponed and nobody was able to give that live premiere. So, I mean, there were so many great festivals that wanted it. Like this year, like Santa Barbara, San Obispo, like they wanted to film, but they were virtual, and they were totally supportive of me waiting. And Hot Docs was trying to be live, but just not able to do it. But there is a surprise. There is an announcement coming very soon that Hot Docs is co-presenting. I don't know if you're aware of it.
I had heard rumblings. They hadn't announced anything officially yet, but I heard through back channels that something might happen.
Yeah, there is a live event in the works, in Toronto, and I can't give the details because it hasn't been announced yet. But and I know I'll be there. I'll be there in my, in a convertible, like rocking out. I don't think, unless things drastically change, the band won't be able to be there. But I will say that the USA premiere, I mean, Hot Docs wanted Fanny there, and everybody does. But, we're in Canada, and there's still that travel thing with the, Americans crossing over. So it's a tough one, right, still. And so, but in the US, I mean, that there is a drive-in planned. I can't say when or what, but it's coming soon. And Hot Docs is is involved somehow, and it's going to be awesome. But and then in the States, we do have several festivals that are committed to having Fanny there, so that's really exciting. That at this moment, it does look like that I'm going to be able to sit with them and watch it with them this summer for the first time together at a drive-in, but I just can't say yet where and exactly when, but I'm super pumped, and I'm really hoping that, the pandemic doesn't throw, 10 new variants our way that shut, you know what I'm saying? Like we're doing the best we can. But there is, it has been fun though with Hot Docs to do this, pocket concert thing that's coming up on May 5th with the band. And Ruby Ibarra, I don't know if you know who she is. She's a Filipina-American rapper from the Bay Area. She's so freaking awesome. She's a little bit in the film. You see her interviewed after, when Fanny performs for the first time after the album is released.
Right. Okay.
Okay. And Gene's son is also on stage.
Right. Okay.
Without the spoiler. And Ruby was there. It's the first time she'd seen the band. And then I interviewed her right after. There's a little clip of her in the film where she says, I can't believe, my parents weren't playing this.
Right.
So that's Ruby. And if you look up Ruby Ibarra, she'll rock your world, man. She is her music videos. She's also like directed a film. She went back to the Philippines and was, this film like 1,000 Hours, I think it's called, that I'm dying to see, that she directed and is also in. And she's a brilliant young woman. And so she's actually, it hasn't been announced, but you're welcome to mention it because we've decided we're going to start speaking about it. That pocket concert, that live stream with Fanny on May 5th, it's the only pocket concert that Hot Docs is doing, and Ruby Ibarra is going to host it. So
fantastic.
Yeah. So she's hosting it. There's going to be something, it's going to be a really cool thing. There's going to be like 4 songs that'll be performed from different locations. And then there's this kind of cool a cappella thing that June led that bring in some other people that are so awesome, from Earl Slick to others through this a cappella creation that she did, which will be part of that live stream. So that's been in the works for a while. And so, we're doing what we can, to make kind of, cool things happen. But at the same time, I see that like in LA, like, what is it? Clarendon or something. There's a company like I just got a promotion. It's like, I don't know if it's Jack Johnson, I think it's Jack Johnson. And they're doing live concerts at these different venues, Clarendon or something. They own a bunch of small, cool venues. And you see people in their cars, and these cool concerts, of course, it's not the same, all of us rocking together.
Of course, yeah.
But, that's the kind of thing I dream of, and of that kind of thing happening at some point. But in the meantime, I know I'm on a long and winding road each time you ask me a question, but to come back to your question about, how I feel about releasing the film, I will say that I feel very good about the film, the completed film. I realize, and I ask people to please be gentle, and to remember that filmmakers have an hour and a half to tell a story about something that could take a whole television series to explore and to go into the layers and layers that, the different bandmates involved in the garage band, and then the Svelts, and then the Svelts morphed into Wild Honey, and Wild Honey became Fanny. And when I had some of this backstory in the film before, it was just like people were watching it going, I'm so confused, because you're trying to include so much. And then, so we just had to clip out some of the details and things in order for people to at least be able to follow the story, And so that's what I tried to do. I tried to keep the core of the Fanny story together, and to try to tell it in a way that honored their background, honored their trajectory, honored the various bandmates as best I could, and their story. And everyone has a story, and that deserves to be told. Like June Millington wrote a book about Fanny. Alice de Burr has got Alice de Burr. That's it, Alice de Burr. That's actually the correct pronunciation I learned. Alice de Burr. She has a fab podcast that she's doing with her team, they've got like 24 episodes out now. So I like try to share those podcasts as well, because they go into such depth. They did a
Sure.
whole episode with, photographer Linda Wolf, who I was so fortunate to be able to use so many of her amazing photos from Fanny Hill, etc., in the film. And I'm so grateful. And she, she brings in different people to help contextualize and different points of view about the Fanny history. And to me, that's awesome, because to me, the film is meant to kind of whet your appetite for Fanny. And then from there, like dive into the deep end, get to know them, listen to their music, go find the podcast, read June's book, look at Linda Wolf's photography books, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, there's so many layers to what, Brie after the band went on and did an album with Cherie Curry, like there's just so many layers, Patty Quattro and her sister, and, like Nikki Barclay, phenomenal keyboardist. Like there's just, and then all the way, the people that, shoulders that they're on as well, just there's, but I mean, they are unique in the sense that they created like this foundation for women, I think,
sure.
as a group in rock and roll.
Yeah.
And I feel very proud of the film for helping bring attention to, like, so many people have written on YouTube, I didn't know about this band. Oh, thanks so much. I can't wait to see the film. So that makes my day. There's a newbie like me, like I was a newbie, like you're a newbie, like we were newbies at one point to Fanny, and that hashtag Get Behind Fanny says it all. That was their little sticker back in the day that you see like go all over the screen at one point in the film. And and the film title was almost that, Get Behind Fanny. Wink, wink. And but then going to, back to the Statue of Liberty, it was like the poster, Fanny, the Right to Rock. The reason I went with that as a title was because just like women fought and died and, were or just injured or traumatized by fighting for the, just like we're standing on the shoulders of the women that fought and gave me, my daughter, etc., the right to vote.
Right.
It's not just, people had to fight like so hard for that to happen. A woman was run over and killed by a horse in England for this, and I took my daughter to different movies. There was a movie done about the suffragist movement.
Yes.
I think it was Glenn Close, or not Glenn Close. What's her name?
Yeah, it was it was Meryl and Carrie Mulligan.
Meryl Streep. Yeah. Meryl Streep. Yeah. So I took my daughter and a couple of her friends to that film, and it's just, I said, these are the shoulders you're standing upon. And so it's important you realize, what kind of shoulders do you want to leave for the girls that follow you in the world? We're not there yet. There's places where women can't vote, where women can't own property, where women can't leave the house without permission. There's, and even in our own country, Stop Asian Hate, that hashtag that's popped up everywhere. Like, what the hell? Like, it's, we still have a long ways to go. And so I hope, so the title to me is just like we're standing on the shoulders of women who fought for the right to vote. Young women today and those who followed Fanny are standing on Fanny's shoulders. Fanny, who fought for them to have the right to rock. And I don't mean that as a cute little saying. I mean that literally.
Well, yeah.
They fought for women's right to rock. And so to me, that's the connection is, the right to vote, the right to rock. And so I thought that was a title that had a little more resonance to me of what they mean, not only musically, but culturally, socially, politically, what they represent too for the underdogs of our world.
No, and you know what? You've done that and then some, because the fight to rock is one of those things that everyone deserves to have, because people got to rock, and you know what? You rock, and thank you for the time. This was absolutely delightful. And don't forget to visit our friends over at Bay Street Video for all your DVD, Blu-ray rental, or purchasing needs this summer, as they are still open for curbside and some mailing delivery as well. Over at 1172 Bay Street, Toronto, Ontario, Canada, you can give them a call at 416-964-9088. That's 416-964-9088. Or send them an email at baystreetvideoto@gmail.com for any of your DVD and Blu-ray needs.